Hello and welcome to The Insider, a show designed to clue you into the biggest news, events and announcements inside the video games industry, discussing with you some things you may know, some things you may not, and glue holds it all together is a little bit of my own opinion. My name is Paul James, thank you very much for watching, and let's get for the episode. So this morning, yesterday I guess by the time you're seeing this, I awoke to some really interesting news, so some stuff that was sparked by MarketWatch, a source that we're not familiar with really within the games industry. But it presented some really interesting information that involved PlayStation and Take-Two, and in this week's episode of The Insider we're going to break down all of it, discuss what it means, what impact it might have on the industry, what impact it might have for you, a whole bunch of game franchises, and much, much more in this week's episode. So let's get into it.
You have to love yourself a fire.
So the rumours that were circulating pertain to PlayStation and Take-Two, and the rumour suggests that PlayStation is going to be picking up Take-Two. They're going to bring it into as a part of the first party family fold. Now there's some wide-reaching consequences to that, and we'll talk about it shortly, but I'm going to discuss the quote that we picked up that basically made all the headlines. This comes from MarketWatch. Take-Two Interactive Software stock climbed 4.7% on rumours that Sony Corp is in advanced board-level discussions to acquire Take-Two in a mostly cash deal that would value the company at $130 per share, according to Joel Kalina, Head of Technology and Media Trading at Wedbush Securities. Now, Wedbush is a fairly prominent data analysis and just an analyst company in the US. They cover not just the games industry, but so many other industries. And their thoughts, opinions, and news and reports should be taken very seriously. That's not to say this will actually come true. We might get some sort of variance on this news, and there might be some perfectly other valid reasons to why this little spikes occurred, and what sort of conversations may or may not be transpiring between PlayStation and Take-Two. But first, we're going to analyse what impact this could have in the event that was true. We're going to do that next. Take a moment and think about the PlayStation portfolio as it currently stands. That includes Days Gone, upcoming, The Last of Us Part 2, The Last of Us franchise, the upcoming Death Stranding, which whilst Kojima Productions is not exclusive to PlayStation, the franchise itself will be exclusive to PlayStation, and the IP is owned by PlayStation. We've got our God of Wars, we've got Ghost of Tsushima, we're thinking about some of these massive studios, Naughty Dog and Sucker Punch and Guerrilla with Horizon and lots of other big exclusives. The PlayStation portfolio is known for its excellent games. Uncharted, my favourite one of the last decade, really. There are some incredible franchises and studios that are exclusively working with PlayStation. Now just imagine what would happen if this rumour were actually true. And it's a big if, and we're going to talk, I'll render my verdict shortly. But it's a big if. But think about some of the studios that are going to be involved in all this. So you've got Rockstar. Rockstar's owned by Take-Two, so that means GTA, Red Dead, Bully, Midnight Club, and several other IP. Who can forget table tennis? Then there's the 2K side of things, which instantly brings one of the biggest sporting games in the world, NBA 2K, WWE 2K, and then a whole bunch of other IP, including Borderlands. There's a whole bunch of news relating to Borderlands 3 at the moment, and if it weren't for this news, I'd be talking about it today. Potentially Borderlands 3, a new Bioshock. There's the Mafia, Civ, and XCOM franchises. There's so many things that are wrapped up in 2K and Take-Two overall that makes things really, really interesting. If this were in fact to be true. Imagine that PlayStation portfolio. If every 5 or so years you're getting a big game from Rockstar, you're getting Borderlands and NBA 2K and all this on top of your Last of Us and Uncharted and God of Wars and Spider-Mans and Ratchets and all those sorts of things in the world. It's huge. It'd make for a hell of a juggernaut, really. We're going to talk about the validity of all this stuff and render my own verdict on what this all actually means, beginning next. So is this all going to happen? Unfortunately not. I don't think so. I'd love for it to be true, and I'd love to be wrong, but I don't think it's going to happen. And I say I'd love to be wrong because I'm an unabashed PlayStation first person. I love my Xbox, I love my Nintendo. I'll play games on the PC every now and then when I'm not having to update my drivers and all that sort of bullshit that they have to do. I'm unabashed PlayStation first. I love my PlayStation, I love my PlayStation IP, my PlayStation franchise, my PlayStation studios. There's some great things going on at all of those. And I'd love to see a company like Take-Two and all its studios and all its IP become a part of that PlayStation family. But there's a few reasons why I just don't see it being the case. Firstly, Sony's not exactly flying financially. They are improving, and PlayStation is the main reason why Sony overall is actually keeping in the black. It's not flying in other sectors. So it's a massive amount of money that they need to be able to fork out to bring Take-Two over, make it seem like it's a really financially viable decision, because keep in mind, by doing this, they're cutting out PC, they're cutting out Xbox, they're cutting out Nintendo out of their audiences. That's probably a little bit more than a quarter of their total addressable audience that they're now only working towards, which is a big difference. There's the NBA license, which currently, that's a relationship that exists outside of the gaming space. That is a partnership between 2K and the NBA, and 2K and the WWE, or whoever governs that body. I don't know enough about wrestling. But those relationships exist outside of this space, and that means that you've got to turn around to the NBA and say, well, we're cutting out a quarter of our addressable audience here because we want to work with PlayStation going forward. And they've got to be party to that. They've got to be happy to do that. They've got to adjust it, maybe rip up contracts and rewrite them and be prepared to potentially make less money out of this deal. There's a lot of parties that actually get brought into this larger conversation that make things a lot harder for Take-Two in the event that they really wanted to follow through on this. And there's a lot of numbers and bottom lines that need to be hit to justify the worth. PlayStation is the biggest console manufacturer in the world right now. They are smashing Nintendo, they are smashing Xbox by even more. But it's still a massive portion of the audience that you're leaving behind. And again, there's that PC space, which is equally massive. It's as big as all of them combined, really, if you want to think about it. It's a really interesting space. We've got some games like The Outer Worlds, for example, which is being published by Take-Two again, but it's currently coming to Xbox and PlayStation. But Obsidian, who's developing it, is now an Xbox Microsoft studio. There's weird sort of relationships that are kind of going on there. There's a lot of things that basically need to be ripped up, because I don't see PlayStation playing ball in the same way that Microsoft is with something like Obsidian, with the way Microsoft treats Minecraft, for example, where they're still happy for it to be on multiple platforms. I don't see PlayStation being as willing and as party to participate in these sorts of activities in the same way that Microsoft is. So there's a few egos that need to be gotten around. There's a lot of bottom line contracts that need to be resolved and accepted, and there's just too many things. There's too many barriers to entry for this to actually be the case. Again, I'd love to be wrong.
Handsome Jack. This tyrant will be the end of us all.
There's something to be said though for this spike in the Take-Two stock. 4.7% the spike was, and it's gone up a little bit since, once the rumours actually started to take off. But it was 4.7% before it was reported upon. That's not an insignificant amount when we're talking about corporations that operate in hundreds of millions and billions of dollars per year. 4.7% spike is huge. So there's got to be something that's fueling that, whatever it is. It may not be PlayStation. Again, I think I'd love it to be the case. But it may not be PlayStation. So what is it? Is it Borderlands 3? Because even then, that's still a huge spike. Red Dead was actually a letdown according to their bottom line and their shareholders. So if the biggest game of the year couldn't do that, couldn't get numbers heading upwards, then what is? It does add some validity and make you question, maybe this is actually legit. But there's got to be some other reasons in play. Gearbox is doing some awesome stuff. It's fairly obvious at this point that Borderlands 3 is going to happen, fingers crossed. But what is it that's generating a 4.7% spike pre-reporting? They're the questions I've got, and I'd love to see them answered, because at the moment we're getting stonewalled by both Take-Two and PlayStation. They're giving us the we don't comment on rumours and speculation thing, which just allows these rumours to stew and fester and continue to kind of build a life of their own. Who knows where this is going to go? But if you've got some ideas, sound off down below. And so that concludes this episode of The Insider. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider liking, sharing and subscribing. All those buttons are down below here, and hit that notification bell. That way you're alerted to every new episode of The Insider, Patched, Player 2 Plays like Game Review, Gamer School and a whole bunch more the moment they go live on the channel. It would be awesome to get your support. Again, like, share, subscribe, hit that bell. Visit the website player2.net.au where you'll find reviews, previews, opinion pieces, news, features, the Player 2 Writers Draft, links to our podcast series, Dev Diary, and the Player 2 podcast, which now hosts the Player 2 Pixelcast, links to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/player2au, and heaps more. There's some great stuff there. Go check out the Twitch feed, like I just said. They're doing regular streams each week for your enjoyment. There's some awesome games being spotlighted, so please be sure to go and check them out. Visit us on Patreon, patreon.com/player2au, and kick in a few bucks. At the lower tiers, you get early access to episodes of this, Patched, and a whole bunch more. At the higher tiers, you get monthly episode exclusives and the ability to join us in the Player 2 podcast. Finally, for rolling updates, you can find me at Paul James Games on Twitter, the website you find at Player2AU on Twitter. And until next time, this is the whole PlayStation, Take-Two, whatever it is that's going on deal discussed. Take my money. I'll see you next time.